The fog hung heavy over the water, a thick, impenetrable veil that seemed to swallow all light and sound. It was a cold, damp blanket, clinging to everything it touched, wrapping the world in a chilling embrace that left no room for warmth or comfort. The air was thick with the smell of pine needles and damp earth, a heady mix that filled my lungs with each breath, grounding me in the eerie reality of my surroundings. A shiver ran down my spine, and I pulled my jacket tighter around me, seeking some semblance of warmth in the face of the pervasive cold that seemed to seep into my very bones. The moon, a pale disk in the night sky, did little to penetrate the darkness that shrouded the lake. Its feeble light was swallowed by the fog, leaving the world in a state of perpetual twilight. This was Whispering Pines Lake, a place whispered about in hushed tones by locals. Stories of its eerie beauty and haunting presence had been passed down through generations. A place of mystery and fear where the line between reality and the supernatural seemed to blur, leaving visitors with an unsettling sense of unease. A place where the boundary between the living and the dead was blurred, where whispers of the past seemed to linger in the air, carried on the wind like ghostly echoes. The only sounds that broke the silence were the gentle lapping of the water against the wooden dock and the rustle of leaves in the wind. These sounds, though faint, seemed amplified in the stillness, each one a reminder of the lake's haunting presence. They whispered like secrets, the secrets of the lake. Each rustle and ripple seemed to carry a story, a fragment of the past that refused to be forgotten. This was a place where time seemed to stand still, a place where the past lingered like the fog itself. The weight of history was palpable, pressing down on the present with an almost tangible force. I could almost feel the weight of unseen eyes upon me, watching, waiting. The sensation was unnerving, as if the very essence of the lake was aware of my presence, observing my every move with silent, spectral vigilance. The legend of Whispering Pines Lake was as old as the town itself. It was a tale whispered from generation to generation, a cautionary reminder of the lake's dark power. It was the story of Emily, a young girl who had vanished without a trace one misty night. Some say she had been searching for a hidden treasure, a chest of gold said to be hidden beneath the lake's murky depths. Others claimed she had been lured to her doom by the spirits that haunted the lake. Whatever the truth, Emily was never seen again. Her disappearance cast a long shadow over Whispering Pines Lake, a chilling reminder of the lake's unforgiving nature. Some whispered that Emily still wandered the shores, her spirit forever bound to the place she had last been seen.
We were a group of 5 friends, drawn to the lake by a thirst for adventure and a healthy dose of teenage bravado. The night was thick with fog, and the air was filled with an eerie silence that only added to the thrill. We had heard the stories about Whispering Pines Lake, tales that had been passed down through generations, but we were determined to uncover the truth for ourselves. There was Jake, the fearless leader, always up for a challenge. He was the one who had convinced us all to come out here in the first place, his confidence infectious.
There was Chloe, the skeptic, who scoffed at ghost stories and tales of the supernatural. She was always the voice of reason, grounding us when our imaginations ran wild.
Then there was Ben, the quiet one, who observed more than he spoke. His silence was comforting, a steady presence in our group.
Mia, the artist, saw beauty even in the most mundane things. She carried her sketchbook everywhere, capturing moments that the rest of us might overlook.
And then there was me, caught somewhere between curiosity and fear. I was the one who always questioned, always wondered what lay beyond the stories we were told. We had heard the stories, of course. What teenager growing up in this town hadn't? The legend of Emily, the ghost who haunted the lake, was a tale as old as the town itself. But we had dismissed them as mere folklore, stories to scare children around campfires. We laughed at the idea, confident in our skepticism. We were determined to prove that there was nothing to fear at Whispering Pines Lake, that the legend of Emily was nothing more than a ghost story. We had our flashlights, our courage, and each other. We would be the ones to finally uncover the truth. As we ventured deeper into the foggy night, the weight of the stories we had heard began to settle in, but we pressed on, driven by a mix of excitement and trepidation. As we set up camp by the lake's edge, the sun began its slow descent, casting long, eerie shadows across the water. The air grew colder, a damp chill that seeped into our bones. The fog rolled in thick and heavy, swallowing the last vestiges of daylight. We huddled around a crackling fire, the flames casting dancing shadows that seemed to writhe and twist in the encroaching darkness.
Did you hear that? Mia whispered, her eyes wide with fear. I thought I heard someone calling my name.
We all listened intently, but the only sound was the crackling fire and the gentle lapping of the water against the shore.
It's just the wind, Mia, Jake said, his voice calm and reassuring. Don't let the stories get to you.
As the night deepened, the fog seemed to press in closer, as if the lake itself were holding its breath. The temperature plummeted, and a strange stillness settled over the woods.
We told stories and jokes, our laughter a feeble attempt to break the growing tension.
But even our laughter seemed to be swallowed by the fog, our voices strangely muted.
Suddenly, there was a blood-curdling scream. We all jumped, our hearts pounding in our chests.
It was Mia! She was pointing a trembling finger towards the lake, her face contorted in terror.
It grabbed me, she shrieked. Something grabbed my arm.
We rushed to her side, but there was nothing there. Only the swirling fog and the dark, still water of the lake.
There's nothing there, Mia, Ben said, his voice tight with concern. You're just letting your imagination run wild.
Chloe found a weathered wooden box hidden beneath the gnarled roots of an ancient oak tree. The forest was dense, the air thick with mist, and the atmosphere was almost suffocating. The box seemed out of place, as if it had been waiting for someone to discover it for centuries. It was old and damp, its hinges covered in rust. The wood was splintered and worn, telling tales of time and neglect. We could almost hear the whispers of the past emanating from it. We gathered around, our curiosity piqued. Each of us felt a strange pull towards the box, as if it held the answers to questions we hadn't even thought to ask.
Could this be the treasure that Emily had been searching for? The thought crossed our minds, filling us with a mix of excitement and dread. What secrets could it hold?
Jake pried open the box, and inside, we found a small, leather-bound journal. The journal looked ancient, its cover cracked and worn, hinting at the countless hands that had held it before us. Its pages were yellowed with age, the ink faded and spidery. Each page seemed to hold a fragment of a forgotten story, waiting to be pieced together.
As Chloe read aloud, her voice trembling, the air grew heavy, charged with a strange energy. It was as if the forest itself was listening, hanging on to every word.
The journal belonged to Emily. It spoke of the lights, ethereal orbs of light that danced upon the surface of the lake. These lights were mesmerizing, almost hypnotic, drawing anyone who saw them closer. But it also spoke of a darkness that lurked beneath the surface, a malevolent force that fed on fear and despair. This darkness was insidious, creeping into the hearts of those who dared to look too closely.
The last entry in the journal sent a chill down my spine. The lights, they are not what they seem. Emily's words were a stark warning, a desperate plea from the past. They are a warning, a beacon to lure the curious to their doom. They are hungry and they demand a sacrifice. The realization hit us hard. The price of our curiosity was far greater than we had ever imagined.
The lights appeared as if summoned by Emily's words.
They flickered and pulsed, casting an eerie glow over the water.
They seemed to dance and swirl, their movements growing more frantic, more aggressive.
Then one by one they began to move towards us, their light intensifying, becoming almost blinding.
Panic surged through our group.
We scrambled to our feet, our eyes wide with terror.
We need to get out of here.
But it was too late.
The lights were upon us, their light searing, blinding.
I screamed as I felt an unseen force seize me, pulling me towards the lake.
Then just as suddenly as it began, it stopped.
The lights vanished.
The fog began to dissipate, revealing a scene that sent a fresh wave of horror through me.
Jake was gone.
The days that followed Jake's disappearance were a blur of grief and disbelief. Search parties scoured the lake and the surrounding woods, but there was no sign of him. He had vanished without a trace, just like Emily. We were devastated, haunted by the memory of that night, the terror in Jake's eyes as he was swallowed by the fog. We returned to our lives, but we were forever changed. The carefree innocence of youth had been replaced by a chilling awareness of the darkness that lurked beneath the surface of things. We carried the weight of Jake's loss, the knowledge that our curiosity had come at a terrible price. One cool evening, weeks after the incident, we found ourselves drawn back to the lake. The setting sun cast long shadows, painting the water in hues of orange and gold. A gentle breeze rustled the leaves, whispering through the trees. We stood in silence, our gazes fixed on the spot where Jake had vanished, and then we saw him, a lone figure standing at the water's edge, his back to us. It was Jake. He didn't turn, didn't acknowledge our presence in any way. He just stood there, his silhouette outlined against the dying light. Then, as quickly as he had appeared, he was gone. Had our minds conjured up his image, fueled by our grief and guilt? Or had Jake returned from the depths of Whispering Pines Lake, forever bound to the place where he had been taken? The lake held its secrets close, its depths concealing a truth we might never fully comprehend. We left that night, our questions unanswered, our hearts heavy with a mixture of sorrow and a strange, unsettling sense of peace. We knew that Jake was at peace, but the lake would forever whisper its secrets to the wind.